Welcome to Mayo Music. I am your host, Dan Pulaski. Mayo Music is an interview series where I chat with artists, musicians, and producers about their journey in the music industry. I try to break down their successes and failures and pinpoint the specific things they did, the steps they took, and the decisions they made to get to where they are today. Today I spoke with Five and a Dime, aka Greg Cantor, a DJ and producer who has shared the stage with the likes of Kendrick Lamar and Steve Aoki, Time Flies, and many more. He has built a substantial following online and has had his music featured on major blogs such as EDM Sauce, Fresh New Tracks, This Song is Sick, Good Music All Day, and Earmilk. In this interview, we talk about how he hustled his way onto these blogs, how he has grown and sustained his fan base online through engagement and a personal touch. And we also talk about how he got his start playing live shows and how eventually he found himself on tour with Kendrick Lamar and Steve Aoki. Let's get to the interview. So Greg, when did you start making music? What year was it? Were you still in school, high school, or when did you start?
In terms of as Five and a Dime, or just in general?
Just in general, just whenever.
I guess the first time I ever started making anything was senior year of high school. So senior year of high school, I didn't really have a name yet. I was just playing around with mashups at the time. And there was actually this website called jamglue.com, but it got taken down by the DMCAA because of copyright infringement and whatnot. But it was actually a online JavaScript coded program that you could throw in instrumentals and acapellas. And that's sort of how I got into it. Then when that got shut down, I then picked up Audacity, which is an extremely simple C++ audio editing program. And I made an album under that. I think actually the first album I ever made as Five and a Dime was also under that. And then I said to myself, okay, I need to start using something more professional because I'm being limited. So then I picked up Ableton freshman year of my college education. Now I'm a senior, so freshman year. And then I made the first album that I publicly released called The Other White Meat, and that came out in April. So it went from 2 years of working through different programs or different methods to then putting out something publicly, because before that it was all kind of just for myself. So that's kind of when it all started going in a more public professional way, is freshman year of college.
Okay, so you started senior year doing real basic software.
Yeah, extremely basic. It wouldn't even be considered anything that you would even release or even listen to. I would show my friends, and they're like, "This sucks," but okay. So you know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's I was dabbling with it, and I did it just because I loved it, not. That's the main thing, is to do it because you love it and not because you're trying to impress people. And even if it's everyone sucks when they start, there's no question within my mind that everyone sucks when they start. So don't ever let that bring you down at any point.
But it was a great starting point though, rather than saying, oh, I really want to start producing tracks, just jumping into Ableton and being completely lost.
Oh yeah, well the thing is I actually downloaded Ableton about a year prior to really using it. And I was like, oh yeah, I saw. This is maybe I want to say about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I tried looking online for programs to use. I was originally obsessed with Girl Talk, so I was trying to figure out what he was using. He was using this program called Audio Mulch. That was another program I used, and it is so weird, and it doesn't make any sense. It's primarily a loop-based program, sort of like Ableton Live, but it's kind of like the Microsoft Paint of Ableton Live. It's if Ableton Live was Photoshop, Audio Mulch is like Microsoft Paint. It's very basic, and it's a pain in the ass to really get to use professionally. So I tried using that, and then I was like, oh, I heard about Ableton. Let me try this out. And I opened it up, started looking at YouTube tutorials. I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I'd say after 3 hours of frustration, I never opened it again until I said, okay, I need to take this seriously, and my parents got me Ableton for Christmas. So I'm one of those few people who actually has a purchased version of Ableton. And I was like, you know what, my parents got it for me, I'm going to try it out. And then I just spent my entire winter break just trying to figure it out. And surprisingly, it was a hard learning curve at first. But once you get over that first hump, it's like almost anything is possible at that point because it's such a fluid interface. Once you figure out the basics, it's only uphill from there.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Stereothongs. That was the first track you uploaded to SoundCloud. Is that right?
I'm not sure if it was the first track I ever uploaded to SoundCloud. I might have uploaded The Other White Meat, which is something before that, but that right now might be the first one publicly shown because I've been taking away mashups and then putting up more original productions and stuff like that because I'm trying to move away from the mashup world. But Stereothongs, that was kind of like one of the two major singles off of Ear Candy, which a lot of people liked. It was an album that it was the second album I put out publicly, and it was like it meant a lot to me because it was the second album I ever did that I feel was truly like a continuous mashup type thing, like how Girl Talk is continuous mashup. It wasn't multiple songs connected together. It was as if it was one giant song was an album. And it's funny because Stereothongs, if I were to bring it up on Ableton, Ear Candy as a whole is one giant Ableton project. It is not multiple projects then just mixed together. It literally Ear Candy had 120 songs, I want to say, in 29 minutes, and it was one project. So, I mean, Stereothongs might have been between 4 minutes and 6 minutes or something. Like, literally, it was like that. It was one giant thought. So, it's funny that you even remember that. I mean, that was a long time ago.
So, yeah, well, I wanted to just go back to your very first song that you released publicly, that you felt was, like, good enough to just put out publicly. So there was quite a few that you put out before that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say before that, I did The Other White Meat, which was like 13 songs, which was public, and then I had singles about every month afterwards until the release of Ear Candy, which was on 420. I had this, I was like a pothead. I was obsessed with it. That means that it would be roughly 12 songs. So 25 songs before the release of Ear Candy. So 25 songs were publicly released, but I wouldn't say that many people listen to that.
Okay, well let's start there. So kind of, I guess, fast forwarding. Right now you have 86 sounds, give or take, upload on SoundCloud. You have over 9,000 followers on SoundCloud. Let's rewind all the way back to that first song. I'm assuming the first tracks, The Other White Meat and those singles were up on SoundCloud originally when you.
Originally, I didn't even use SoundCloud, which was stupid of me. I wish I started it earlier because I would have had a bigger following. But well, that's like a big thing, especially any producers that are listening. If use technology, it is your friend. If you don't use the social media to your advantage, like I know kids who put out amazing music, and they haven't updated their Facebook in 6 months. If you make this amazing music and no one hears it, I mean, yeah, it's great, but at the end of the day, you want other people to enjoy your music. And if you want this to be a career, you need to take every possible facet of it seriously, whether that means you take the music seriously, you take the advertising seriously, you take blogs seriously, you take pushing the music out there seriously. It all matters together. So, I mean, The Other White Meat and Ear Candy, they were not released via SoundCloud. They were released via Mediafire.
Okay.
And I mean, this was back in the day when SoundCloud, I mean, yeah, it was very young. I mean, I'm talking about I wasn't even considering using SoundCloud to release it because, in 2011, 2010, you put out a Mediafire link on, a big blog. That's perfect. It's direct download. No one wants to deal with streaming it. They just want to download it right here, right now. Now everyone wants to only stream it and not actually download it. So it's like a whole different thing.
Okay. So then when you started with SoundCloud, did you already have a little bit of a following from
Maybe
these albums?
maybe like 100, maybe 50. Not even.
150 people?
No. Between 50 and 100.
Oh, okay.
And that was over a week, maybe. I mean, it was not a lot at all. It was not a lot at all.
Okay. So after those two albums, then you went into the mode of just releasing a ton of mashups and lots of remixes as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, I didn't even release my first remix until last year.
That's true.
Yeah, for about the past few years, I did these projects called Bass Mob, which was basically these thoughts, these like separate thoughts of mashup albums, and that kind of branding really helped because when you can get a single conceptual idea that is consistent, that sticks with people. So if you make a series or if you have an idea and you continue with that, it's way better than if you were to have one idea and then go all the way to something completely opposite. And even I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, of course. But like the past two releases, I did one that was like bouncy electro, and then the next one was funk. One was 128 beats per minute, one was 90 beats per minute, and they're completely different. They sample completely different songs. So I realized that if you want to continue to build a fan base, you need to have something that is consistent. So, if you put out something and it's X, Y, and Z, you have to continue putting out something that's X, Y, and Z in order to catch people's attention. Because if you do something off the radar, chances are you're going to get an off-the-radar response.
Okay. So was that consistency of branding, was that kind of your game plan? So going back to, so you're at 50 to 100 followers on SoundCloud. And then, like, what'd you do from there? What was step one?
Keep putting out stuff, minimum something every month.
Okay.
And then try and put out an album. And mashup albums were easier for me because it was inherently the thing I've been doing so far. And then going, you just have to be consistent, put out something a lot. Like, if you hear about a kid who's coming out and he's like for example, there's this guy named Keizo, who I'm good friends with, and he has this awesome niche right now where he makes hardstyle and then transitions the hardstyle into trap. So instead of like Flowstradamus taking a hardstyle song and just making it trap, this kid is taking any song, turning it into hardstyle, and then turning it into trap. So he has had that sound and been consistent with it for, I'd say, 6 months. And at the start, it was kind of like, okay, he was getting some numbers, whatever. He was doing dubstep and things like that, which is fine. The second he started doing this hard-style trap mixture, all of a sudden, keeps putting out, the numbers keep growing and growing and growing. I mean, he put out a song for free about a month ago, and it got picked up by Diplo on his BBC radio show out of nowhere. So, it's one of those things. If you're consistent, it really helps. You got to think of it as the multiplier effect. It's like if you have X to the 10th power, or if you have, let's say you start out with a song and you get an average of 1,000 plays, right? And then every song that's consistent with that, you got to think of the growth as 1.25 times. So every time you do that, it grows and it gets compound interest. Whereas if you were to put out random stuff all the time, chances are one might get 1,000, one might get 2,000, one might get 500, but it's not going to be growing because the people who like this song, one of the songs, are going to listen again and going to say, this isn't what I remember.
Mm-hmm. So consistency of releases is just as important as consistency of sound, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Content is king, and that's
Right.
the way you got to think of it.
Cool. So okay, so you started releasing these tracks. So what were you doing to drive traffic to your music? I know you use Turntable a bit. I know I'm pretty sure where I found you.
Really,
But what were you doing besides that? Like, emailing,
I
sending them to
interacted a
HiChem.
lot with my fans during Ear Candy, like the with Stereo Thongs was in. I did a thing. I said, "Fuck it." I said, "I'm gonna give out free stickers to all my fans and pay for shipping and handwrite them letters, every single one of them." And you do that, and you get a lot of love because you get what you put into it. And I did that. I sent out, maybe at the time I sent, I don't know, 300 letters, and all I got was love from it. It was, people were saying, "Holy crap, this guy spent a week of his time writing these letters by hand and sent them out," and all this type of stuff. And that really helped. Things like campaigns, giveaway contests, things like that help. Blogs are a major thing. Any possible way that you can get involved with blogs is the best idea you could ever have, because they already have an audience that will probably love your stuff if they okay it. You really have to hustle a lot in order to get into blogs. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to make those contacts. It's not like you can just send an email and they're going to say, "Oh, okay, awesome, we'll post it on Thursday." No, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of knocking on doors, and also making sure that you're walking on eggshells, that you don't step on anyone's feet and you don't piss anyone off. So, I mean, it's like a mixture between politics and lobbying, if I were to put it in any type of way, which
Okay.
is fine. I mean, that's just the way the business is. And all the blog people I talk to, I love them because I have a personal relationship with them. But it was not an easy feat to even gain to gain the relationships I have now. I'm not even at the point where I'm happy. I mean, personally, I am a little disappointed in myself at where I am now, only because of the fact I'm in school and I have to graduate. But if I had connections to every single blog in the world, then I guess I'd be happy, but that's not possible. So
Cool. Well, if you don't mind, you mind kind of walking me through one of the early blogs that you were able to break through and build a relationship with?
definitely, I
At
think,
that stage where you were at, 50 to 100 followers and, putting
yeah.
tracks out every week. How did you, what was your first initial emails? Like, can you remember, like, kind of
Well, what it
broad
was,
strokes?
I was talking to Fresh New Tracks at the time, Good Music All Day at the time, Dirty Mexican Lemonade, Pump the Beat, just things like that. So of all different sizes and genres and things like that. And I noticed that in order to get in touch with these guys, it was more about starting a personal connection more than anything. It's not about you. It's not about your music. It's about, well, I mean, of course it's about the music. I mean, if your music sucks, you're not going to get anywhere. And, that's just the harsh truth. Even I put out music that people think sucks, and blogs won't post it, and other blogs say they love it. That's just the way it is. But what I mean is, don't necessarily email them out of the blue. Try and start something. Maybe hit them up on Twitter to get your name in their head. Maybe add them on Facebook personally. Try and find someone who is new working for that blog that might be able to get you in there because of the fact they're new. They have to bring something new to the table. So they could say, "Oh, I'm the first one to bring Five and a Dime," or "I'm the first one to bring Nickel," or whoever, you know what I'm saying? Like anyone that they want onto the blog. So that's a huge thing too, is finding out who's new to the blogs and getting on their good side. Because if you try and talk to the head person of the blog or the person who runs it, they're so busy they don't want to deal with it. But if you talk to someone who's trying to get more and more posts onto a blog, that's the person you need to talk to. So you need to get personal with them on Facebook, on Twitter, things like that, and then you can email them promos. And the best way to email a promo is the way that a lot of people actually say this, is the way that Victor Niglio has been telling people to do it. And if you just type in Victor Niglio promo email on Google, I'm pretty sure you'll find it, and it's a very, very simple and very mature way of looking at sending promo emails, and that will help you guys a lot.
Cool. Well, do you mind, like for example, Good Music All Day? Do you remember how you originally reached out to them and kind of like, what was that relationship, and how did you eventually get like your first track featured on their blog?
So I guess what it was is that I was friends with this one. Sorry about the train. I live, in a mountain town.
No worries. I got a busy street behind me too.
Okay. There was this kid who I was good friends with at the time, who actually was friends with a blogger at Good Music All Day. I sent them my stuff, and then they were interested. They posted it, and then when they posted it, you then reach out to whoever posted it, because usually on the blog it says the name of the person who made the blog post. You contact them and you make a friendship with them. So one thing that I always tell people to do is try not to worry about the blogs you want to get onto. Look at the blogs that you might have already been posted to that you don't even realize. Type in your name or type in your alias name or whatever it is you go by, and you might be on 5-6 blogs that you didn't even realize there. Doesn't matter if they're small or big. Just make that relationship. You'd be surprised that there's actually a lot of people who get posted by blogs without them even knowing. And then you make friendships with them, and then you go from there. Try and build a press kit. Try and maybe get your first manager. Try and, find someone who might hustle for you. Because some people aren't good at hustling in terms of, not like, hustling drugs or anything, but hustling in the sense of like pushing their music in the sense of a business way, in a much more business-oriented manner. Some people are better at that than others. I happen to be fortunate that I was always entrepreneurial. I go to business school, so that's kind of like in my brain. But there are some kids who only want to do the music, and that's fine. If anything, it's better because then you get to focus on that. But have someone or something push you, because you can't do it all. It is impossible. So if my biggest suggestion is either have someone help you get on the blogs or reach out to people, or if you want to do it yourself, you have to be very delicate and make sure that you try and make a personal connection with people before.
So okay. So Good Music All Day is maybe not the best example then, because you said you had a friend there already, and you were basically on their blog immediately. Yeah, give me one where it was like you were scratching, you really wanted to get on this blog, and like you did, you had to jump through all these hoops, or you were just trying lots of different ways to get on. How did you finally break through, or what kind of baby steps did you take to get there?
Fresh New Tracks, I would probably say, would be the first one.
Okay.
And I had to do a lot of fucking jumping through hoops. In order to get onto that, I had to I was with this guy who was my manager at the time, and he said, hey, there's an opening slot for Sam Adams, which, back in 2010, he was popping off at that time. Mm-hmm. They said he was all the way in Boston, and I'm in Philadelphia, and I'm in Lehigh, and I have my finals next week, and I have to be studying for this shit. They said, look, this is your first show ever. If you get here, you don't know who's going to be there. And apparently Fresh New Tracks was there because Sam Adams was really highly represented by them. And I said, okay. I drove 6 hours up to Boston in order to open up at a show where I wasn't even planned to play there. It was a random set, and I was the opening set. No one knew who I was. Put on a great performance, and then I got off stage, and then off the bat, I got I met the guy from Fresh New Tracks, and then we went from there. So it was kind of like I had to prove myself almost. It's either you have to submit something awesome or you have to meet someone in person. And chances are, if you meet someone in person, it really builds that a lot. I mean, if you live in Boston, if you live in Philadelphia, you live in LA, you live in Miami, and you see a blog that is in your area, meet them in person. Don't email them and be like, here, check out my music. Be like, hey, do you want to grab dinner sometime? Do you want to grab coffee sometime? Because you'd be surprised how much more of an impact it makes when you meet someone in person. It makes them feel like you really care about your craft and you really care about putting it out there.
So
You're willing, if you ever can, meet people in person.
Okay. So do you think it's even valuable then to do these emails, these cold emails and stuff? I mean, the
Well,
two
yeah.
examples you kind of gave me where, basically emails and the reaching out kind of didn't work, and you got on there different ways.
Well, yes and no. I think that obviously they have the email for a reason. A perfect example, and I'm basing this off of the most knowledge I know from just talking to people and my own insights. There's this guy named Zhu, Z-H-U, and he was the dude who came out with that very mysterious Outkast remix mashup about 2 months ago, and he submitted it anonymously to This Song Is Sick, and it got posted because it was so great, and it was anonymous, and people were saying, who the hell is this guy? He didn't even want people to know who it was. So if you really have an amazing, amazing, top-notch quality product, chances are it's going to get listened to, because I think they go through all their emails and listen to stuff. I think it's just if they're not pleased within the first 5 seconds, and if they scroll through and go to the drop and they're not happy with it, they're just going to not care.
And there's no context, right?
No, not at all. It really comes down to the person who's reading the emails at the time, if they like it or not. Because I can promise you, there are people at some blogs that hate my shit and then love my shit, and they're both on the same blog. Mm-hmm. So, it's also finding the people who really like your sound, because not everyone's going to like your sound, even if it's the same blog.
Okay. All right, well, let's transition into to live shows. You kind of touched on it there with the show open up for Sammy Adams at Boston. Did you say that was your first show? Your first live show?
Well, first show that was at a professional level, yes. I did some basement frat shows at Lehigh that I wouldn't even consider a show. It was more or less like practice,
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of what your beginning shows are, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, technically, my first show ever would be something I put on in the cafeteria, and there were 20 people there, and they were all my friends at the time. So technically, that's my first show. But the Sammy Adams one was the first professional show.
Okay. And how did you kind of start getting into that, getting into real shows and playing? It was all local, I'm assuming. Well,
no, it was not actually. That was the weird part, is that I was, at the time, I was like one of the first dudes to come out of like what people might call the second generation of mashup. So like the first generation is like Girl Talk, Super Mash Bros, and White Panda. They were like the big first chunk, and then there was Blau, Cap Slap, and I. And I was the first one out of all three of them to start doing it. So mashup was still it wasn't new, but it was the hot thing, and it was brand new in the sense of people wanted it, just people couldn't get enough of it. So I was like a part of that second generation of mashup, and I guess because of that, my music started getting posted a lot more. And then I started getting shows just because of people hearing my name on blogs. So, it was a mix between that and also putting on a good performance. But, my performance was gradually getting better, and it still gets better. So, it comes down to being a good performer, and it also comes down to being relevant in the scene to get shows.
So in the beginning, it was relatively easy for you to get shows. I mean,
no. I didn't get paid. I actually lost money on my first few shows because they didn't give me shit. They just said, "Here's an opening slot," and I drove myself. I would, whatever job I had at the time, I was working, and I saved up my money to have enough gas and food to go up to Boston, to go up to New York, to go to Connecticut or whatever, and just perform for free, just to get my name out there, just because I wanted to perform. So I actually lost money on the first few shows I did.
Yeah, I mean, I meant, I guess I misspoke. I
Oh no,
meant,
no, no.
like it was, were these people approaching you, or were you actively seeking, like saying, hey, this is what, there's
I
my
was
audience
actively
online,
seeking
like,
them. I was
I think I'd be a
actively
great.
Yeah, I was actively seeking people who needed opening acts. It
Okay.
was not given to me at all.
Okay. So you were seeking them. Um, how was that? Like, was it easy to leverage kind of the audience you had built online and say, hey, people love my music. I think it'd make a lot of sense with this act for me to open for them. Like, was that an easy process, or was that
No,
pretty
no.
challenging?
Considering that my numbers were so low, people didn't really care, and that's the issue with the music industry is that they almost want your social. They look at your social media as a type of um, what's the word I'm looking for? A type of almost
Validation or something?
exactly. It validates you. Some kids could throw a monster set, but they don't have numbers, and that's an issue to the promoter or whoever's putting on the show. I happened to get on my first shows because I just kept heckling the guys, and I was like, "Look, I'll do it for free. Just let me perform here. I just want to perform." And then they eventually just were like, "Fine, you're free. You'll come do the show,
Mhm.
whatever."
What,
So
out of curiosity, what numbers are you talking about when you would hit up these guys and say, I'll just come perform for free because my numbers aren't great?
uh,
What's rough numbers?
1,000 Facebook fans, 50 Twitter followers, 100 SoundCloud followers. I don't even know if I had SoundCloud at that point.
Hmm.
I had maybe 200 YouTube. I mean, it was very, very. It was very small. It was
Okay.
to the point where if I were to have nothing and this, it wouldn't really matter to the promoter. They're going to say, okay, well, no one's coming here is going to know you anyways, and they know what's up. They know that I want to perform there in order to get more fans, and they know I want to just perform. So they know that. They're not going to give me any money. They're just going to say, hey, you come for free, you get to perform. That's just the way it was.
I wonder if you probably had quite a few tracks on SoundCloud. Was that ever a factor? You had like 20 tracks that you were able to say, hey, here's what I've put out, or I
Yeah,
have 30
yeah. I
tracks
mean,
out.
yeah, no, definitely. It was more YouTube at the time.
Hmm.
Like I would be like, look, like I have this track with, X amount of views, and they'd be like, okay, cool, whatever. They
I
didn't they
see.
didn't care. It really came down to the money for them to save money. It really all started changing when I actually started getting an audience. So, once you get people who know your music and like your music and start requesting your music, then the promoters, then the people who put on shows at schools, then kids are going to want to request you because they're saying, I like Five and Dime. Oh, yeah, I like Five and Dime too. Let's have him at a show. Let's have him at a frat party. Let's have him at our school. Let's have him at a venue. If you say, hey, do you know DJ, Trident Energizer? They're gonna be like, who the hell is that? And if there's no name recognition, they're not gonna care.
Hmm.
So
So tell me about that. When did that start happening, and how did you transition from these shows that you're just basically begging to get on the bill to open for to then going on a national tour? Um,
it was very gradual. I mean, some people are luckier than others, and some people happen to have the right connections at the right timing and everything. Me, it was very gradual in the sense of I did those free shows, and then um, I had a dry spot for about 6 months, and I was just working on Ear Candy, which Stereo Thongs was in, and then I did like 2 high school shows. I mean, it wasn't going quick, but when I put out Ear Candy, everything changed. It really is comes down to a big project. If you put out a big project and people really fuck with it and people like it, you're gonna get shows, and that goes with singles, that goes with anything. Because you could put out music, and if no one catches on to it, you're not gonna get shows. if you put out music, people do catch on to it. That's the more shows you get. It's natural organic growth. So the second I put out Ear Candy, then I started getting frat shows throughout the country, primarily the South, and a lot in Austin, surprisingly, and like Alabama and Mississippi and the Midwest and things like that. So that was the first step, was doing the frat shows. And then
So just to stop you there, so you put that out, and then people found this online, and
yeah, see,
all over the country, and
well,
did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them at that?
Oh no, they reached out to me. That was the first time people were actually reaching out to me.
Okay.
And that was the cool thing. It was like, holy shit, like these people like me enough to actually fly me out there. Like, holy crap, like this is amazing, you know. But it's very weird because it was more than just the project of Ear Candy. As I said before, I did that like sticker thing, like the sticker giveaway, and like I put a lot of effort and love in like responding to all the fans and everything. And it really built that foundation where people were like, wow, this guy really loves what he does and cares about his fans. And that went a far way, because you could have some guy who really likes your music, but that's where it stops. And then all of a sudden you're sending him a snail mail of stickers and a handwritten letter, and they happen to be the social shared fraternity, and they're going to say, I really like the way this kid works, let's book him. So that possibly could have been it too.
Okay, so you're doing the frat shows. People are reaching out to you after Ear Candy, and then when did you actually what happened after that? Did you
Then I kept putting out music, and then I put out this thing called Skrill Mouse in the summer, and I got picked up by This Song Is Sick, and it was probably like the big single I had or whatever. Like first one anyways, and it was so big that I think it's almost, on one video, it's almost over 1 million views on YouTube. And in total I think it's like 1.7 million total if you add all the videos together. So it was like really big, and it was everywhere. And this is right when Skrillex was blowing up too. So it was like, that was a big deal. And then on top of that, it was the first time I ever did a dubstep mashup that wasn't just the dubstep song with an acapella. It was me chopping up multiple dubstep songs together, and that was kind of unheard of at the time. So that was like, a mix of, it was just timing. It was the right timing and the right concept and idea. So there's that.
So how did that play into actually being booked on a tour? Like were people reaching out to you for that? They're like, hey,
Yeah, they're reaching out to me for that. They were reaching out to me as well from Ear Candy as well. That would release in April. And I just kept putting out singles every month, and it kind of started snowballing. It kind of, it's, as I said before, like gained compound interest, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I guess it was more or less that I started getting booked so many shows that it became a tour. But it was more or less like on the weekends type thing, because I was only a sophomore, maybe early junior at that time. And then I started doing a lot of these shows on the weekends, and then I was like, okay, I'm doing all these shows, I don't know if I can do school and this at the same time. So I decided to take a year and a half off from school and just make music and try and do shows. And then from there, I kept putting out music, kept putting out Bass Mob albums. And then after that, after having a bunch of shows with Time Flies and other artists, then I got picked up to go onto the Kendrick Lamar and Steve Aoki tour. And then that was a godsend. I mean, that, honest to God, it was like the most amazing experience I've had in my entire life. And that is the experience that makes me want to come back and be like, look, the second I'm done school, I'm going to put all my effort into music and achieve that for myself. Not just to be opening, but one day to have that for myself. So it really comes down to how bad you want it. Because it really comes down to how bad you want it and how much work you put in. Because there's so many people that are like, I want to be performing at Ultra. I want to be at Coachella. I want to be here and there and all that stuff. Well, if you want to be there, you got to work your ass off. Even the people who are, I mean, I'm not even going to get into that. I was going to say ghost production, but basically what I'm trying to get at is no matter what your craft is, whether it is pushing a song or being a manager or a booking agent or an artist, it takes a lot of work and effort to get to that type of level. So, you know, a lot of kids get discouraged after maybe 6 months and they don't get picked up by a blog. I mean, I was doing stuff since senior year, and I didn't think anything was even good enough to post publicly for 2 years. So, I mean, you just got to stick with it.
So I guess the takeaway there with the with kind of the touring and stuff was you really just took baby steps along the way. You started doing the shows for the frats, and then transitioned into more regularly playing on the weekends.
Yeah.
And then were you on the full-time Flies tour, or was that a full national tour, or were you just
I
for a few
was.
shows, or?
Well, the way it worked out is I did a show with them in Mayfest in Syracuse one year, and then last March, it was so right before the Kendrick Lamar tour, I went on the West Coast tour with them. So it wasn't the full national thing; it was just the West Coast.
Okay. And then after that, you got picked up for the Kendrick Lamar, Steve Aoki thing.
Exactly,
How
yeah.
did that happen? Did they reach out to you, or did you hear
It
about it
was
and reach
it
out
was
to
a
them?
mix of things. It was someone I was working with at the time worked with Karmaloot, and they were the ones putting on the tour, and they were looking for opening acts and things like that. And I guess because of the fact that they had Steve Aoki and Kendrick Lamar, and then they had Bad Rabbits, which is like a hybrid funk rock rap group. They needed another electronic act, and I was willing to do it. I mean, anyone would be willing to do that. And, you know, I said, you know, I wasn't on the bus, by the way. You know, I was not living a glamorous lifestyle for the month that I was on tour. I mean, me and my buddy Andrew, who was my tour manager, we drove 22,000 miles in 2 months and slept in our car.
Wow.
And so it was not like I was on the bus popping champagne. It was like I was taking 3 energy shots a day in order to make sure I didn't crash my car into a moose. You know, like it was very stressful. And then performing on top of all that driving, and then making music on top of all that. I mean, it was crazy.
So was it a hard sell though to get on the tour? I mean, you had a buddy who was at Karmaloop and they're putting on the tour.
It was
I
really.
mean, was it kind of like I fit the bill? You guys
Yeah,
should
it was
make
that.
sense?
It was that, and also meeting their financial requirements, like them saying, "Okay, you're gonna do this, and you're only gonna make X amount, and then whatever you spend on your food and your car, you have to take care of it yourself." So, I mean, I actually ended up losing money, but that's for different reasons. You know, that I'm not allowed to get into, but they're basically when you do a tour, when you do shows like that, just make sure that you get covered. I mean, the biggest thing is that after all the experience I've learned, they have enough money to cover your expenses. And when I say expenses, I mean your gas and $20 or $10 for food. And, you know, if they don't have enough for that, then it's not worth your time unless it's local, or you know that you can drive back, or you have somewhere to stay or crash or whatever.
Mhm.
Because me, I was kind of naive about it, and I was like, I'm gonna go pursue this because I love to perform. But now I realize that if you do something for free, without even being, I'm sorry, I just ate dinner.
No worries.
If you perform for free and don't even get reimbursed for gas or anything, you actually get treated worse, because even though you're doing them a favor, they're saying, "Oh, I'm not paying you shit, so I can treat you like shit."
Mhm.
And that's the sad truth about it. You know, just try and get reimbursed somehow.
Okay. So you fit the bill, you know, in terms of your sound and stuff, and you're saying that like financially, like there weren't like you as an artist or where you are in your career, you fit financially for the tour to make sense, or I'm still not quite
It made
understanding.
sense for me because they didn't want to spend that much money, and I had other dates during that tour that were my own personal shows that were frat shows that met the bill. So while I had 5 shows of Kendrick Lamar and Steve Aoki, and then 2 shows by myself where I was the headliner and made good money, so it counteracted each other.
I see. So it was a selling point for them.
Exactly.
You were able to sell them on that it's going to fit into your schedule, and financially it makes sense for both parties, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I think we're kind of wrapping up here. I just have a couple last questions for you. So we talked about Bass Mob a little bit earlier. Tell me more about it, and tell me like specifically, because it didn't start as a mailing list, or I guess kind of still is. Or tell me a little bit more about it.
Okay, so I was this is back when I was listening to like Wiz Khalifa, and Wiz Khalifa had Taylor Gang, and it was like his big like fan base, and I was like, wow, there's no one in electronic music or mashup or anything that has this. And I was like, what is my music particularly contain? And I was like, bass. And I was like, I'm not gonna have Bass Gang, like Bass Mob. So I put out Bass Mob, and it was like this idea that, it was my music, it was my style, it was my fan base, it was more than just me. It was us as a group of people who like music, who support me. So that was the idea behind it, and then it became a mailing list, and then it became a music video, and then it became a single, and then it became an album series. I mean, it was ultimately it was good branding, but at the same time it was bad branding from where I want to be now. Like, the whole music video series had like Tigger and Elmo in it, and it was very childish. And at the time, it was cool, but now I want to be much more mature with my look. So, it didn't help that I have to now rebrand my whole thing, but it was great at the time because it was all consistent. And the other issue was that when you have multiple things called Bass Mob, you get a little confused as to what the hell Bass Mob is. It's like, oh, is it the mailing list? Is it the fans? Is it the Tigger and Elmo costume? Is it the music video? Is it the song? Is it the album? It's just too much. So,
I see. So originally it was kind of like the name for the fans, and it's a mailing list for like your hardcore fans who really want to know like literally everything that you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So how was that, like, as an artist, a young producer today is doing something like that, you think valuable to them? I mean, how did that, I know you talked about the sticker thing, how did that mailing list, how was that, like, valuable to you at that time?
They're really valuable when you have the means and motivation to do so. If you don't have enough time to do a mailing list, don't do it. If you don't have enough extra cash from working a side job that you believe in throwing away, not throwing away, but giving up in order to better your fans or do something for your fans, then do it. But if you don't, then don't do it. The main thing that a lot of kids think is like there's this secret strategy marketing type of Illuminati thing that like you do something or you rub the right people's backs or you pay enough money. It's not like that. It comes down to your music. If you don't put out music and you don't put out good music, and that's all that matters. Because unless you are in a very fortunate situation where you have pre-existing fame like DJ Pauly D or Paris Hilton or whatever, that's not going to fly otherwise. And there are a lot of people who say, oh, this guy, he was rich and he bought his way into the music industry. I'll be honest with you, I hear a lot of that from a lot of people on the internet, but if you really want to point out some artists, I mean, it is very, very unlikely that, I mean, yes, there's examples, but there are still many, many, many people who come from money in the music industry or have a pre-existing fame in the music industry, but are actually talented producers, are actually talented performers, and entertainers. So, I mean, for example, I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day. I won't say his name because it's a blunt thing to say,
Mhm.
But he put out a tweet or something saying, I don't like that these rich kids are buying their way into the festival lineups or whatever. And then I told him, I was like, yo, like, that may be all fine and dandy and stuff, but you really think that's going to benefit them? You really think that them having no music and then going onto a stage and then playing the top 100 Beatport list is actually going to help their career? No. The festival is just going to take the money, and no one's even going to show up to that person's performance because no one knows who they are. It doesn't matter if you have money. It comes down to what you put out. Because I could have one song and put $100,000 into promoting it. But if it's one song and it flops, it doesn't matter how much money you put into it, it flops.
Mhm.
It's either it's a hit or it's not a hit, and that's just the way it is.
Okay. So I guess going back just a little bit to the Bass Mob,
Mm.
I mean,
Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
yeah, I'm sorry. I've been letting you kind of go off on tangents
It's
because I
just the
think
problem with ADHD.
I like it. I like it though. I think it's valuable to people. But backtracking to the mailing list. I mean,
Mm.
I'm just thinking, with my producer buddies who are, getting started and they're small, trying to figure things out, like, kind of following some of the basic advice. But I think an email list is not something a ton of people are doing today as a focus always.
No,
So
but the
you're
thing,
saying if you have the time to do it, sure, but if you don't have a strategy and you don't have kind of a game plan, that it's just a distraction, you're kind of spreading yourself thin. Is that kind of
exactly,
what I'm getting?
exactly, 100%. You said it better than I did in the past 10 minutes. Basically, it comes down to if you if you're putting all your time into your music and then you have free time to do a mailing list, go for it. If you don't have enough content to be mailing people and you have a mailing list, then what's the point?
Yeah. Okay. That's all I wanted to hear. Are you still using the mailing list now, or
Yes, I
kind
do.
of?
Whenever I have a release, I put it out. Right now, there's close to about 2,000 Basement members,
Okay.
and I got some people out in San Francisco who are doing they're programming actually a whole new thing for me that's going to allow Bass Mob to be more than a mailing list. They're going to make Bass Mob into a Facebook and Twitter community, and we're making a point system where essentially you want free merchandise or free stickers or sign something or CD of an album for free or whatever,
Mhm.
share this post or tweet this out, and you get points. And if you get enough points, you can get free shit.
That's
So it's
cool.
almost like, rewarding them for doing something instead of just begging them for something. It works
Yeah.
both ways.
Adding
I
some
gain
points
something
to
and
the
they gain
street
something.
team.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Okay, well let's wrap up here. I have two last questions, and then I'll let you go. So I know we've kind of touched on some of this, but I wanted to just get like the one biggest mistake that you've made so far, as an artist, a producer in general, that a young producer should avoid.
I've had plenty of mistakes. My God, I'm trying to think what's the biggest one.
Or maybe not the biggest, but maybe one that just has a really good takeaway. Something that's someone else can take and say, okay, I can avoid doing that. It's pretty easy, or I should
Wear a
think about it.
condom. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, the biggest thing, like biggest thing, I have to break it down to two things. One, never ever be too stubborn and don't and if you ask for criticism, if you ask for constructive criticism and you ask someone that you really trust will give you an honest answer and they give you an answer that you don't like, don't get pissed off at them. Don't be like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because chances are you've fallen in love with the song that you made or the project that you made that you can't hear what they're hearing. They're the audience. They're the people who are going to be listening to your music. And if they see a huge flaw and then you show three other people and they say something similar, chances are it's not them, it's you. And you need to suck it up and man up and be like, okay, well, this is music and this is my art form, but I also want to improve on my art form. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to improve. The other big mistake, and that happened to me in my earlier career, my earlier parts of my career. Now I'm open to everything. I mean, literally, I'm open to everything. I'm open to every single person's comments. I'm open to kids who come up to me at shows and tell me what they think, because you never know. They might give you that little golden nugget of information that you might be like, damn, like, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing is, do not give up your rights as an artist to anyone. Meaning that, if you get a booking agent, you're obviously signing away some of your rights in order for them to book you shows and for order them to take care of contracts and you be safe and then get the most money possible for you. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is signing a contract that might hinder you in the sense of, if you're really growing fast and someone comes up to you and makes you sign a contract and then you sign it and it says they have you for 2 years, and then in the next 6 months you want to get picked up by a big booking agency, you can't do shit because you're literally chain-balled to the ground by these guys. And the other way that I'm saying that is managerial-wise. If you get a manager that is controlling, that's a huge sign of being like, okay, this is bad. You should always look at the people who work for you as working for you. You are not working for them. You're the talent. So they make a commission or a salary off of you. You are not paying them to do stuff because they control you. You're paying them to do stuff so that way you can focus on music. So, I mean, I've had 2 bad experiences with 2 ex-managers where I was being controlled. And it was getting to the point where I couldn't even decide the music I wanted to make because they were telling me the music I wanted to make, and I wasn't happy. So you need to make sure, at foremost, your music comes first. Because if you have someone control your music and control your email, control what you put out on social media, and you can't even be yourself or anything like that, and I mean, of course, they're going to mention things that you're not going to like, but that comes down to constructive criticism. You have to take into consideration, is this really going to benefit me more than me being a stubborn person? Then if that's the case, then of course do it. But if someone's saying you can't say something on Twitter, you can't have control of your email, I need you to wake up at this time every single day, and I need you to tell me a schedule of what you're going to do every single day, I mean, that's nuts. That's not actually having someone work for you. It's like you're in a concentration camp working for that person.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest suggestion. Don't write away your rights.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what's something that you've done so far in your career that you think you've done really well? Something that other artists can look at and maybe apply to their careers?
The biggest thing is don't ever, and this is so cliche, don't ever let anyone tell you that what you're doing is bad or wrong, because I know a lot of kids who were told, oh, your style of music isn't great, it's never going to catch on, this and that, whatever. And then 6 months later, they're opening up at festivals out of the blue. And it's like some kids have these ideas that are actually ahead of their time. And you shouldn't stop doing what you do. I mean, the whole point of music is to make music. If your whole goal is to make money, you will never become successful. And that's a statement from J.D. Rockefeller. He said, if your goal is to get rich, you'll never get rich. But if you do...
Everything okay out there?
Man, I feel like I'm in Camden or in Compton or something. What the fuck just happened? I hope you put that in the interview. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Can you make that into a GIF? Like, seriously? That's what my face was like.
We're like, what the fuck?
Like, I know I went on tour with Kendrick Lamar, but goddamn.
Holy shit.
I know. Fuck, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't make a type of music, because if you're not happy with the music that you're doing and it's not making you feel good that you made something like that, there's no point in doing it. I made mashups not so I could transition into EDM. A lot of people say, oh, it's a great way to jump into EDM. I genuinely did mashups because I was obsessed with them and I was in love with them. I basically worshipped Girl Talk as like a god. And I went to his shows, and every chance I could, I went to his shows. And I even, I did it because I loved it. And that's the main thing. If you do it because you love it and you really enjoy the product you're making, and you enjoy spending hours and hours and hours on a computer making the music, and even if you get 10 plays on it, it makes you happy, that's all that matters. Because then you'll become successful. If you enjoy what you do, it might take longer for some people than others. I mean, look at the best example. I mean, for example, look at Danny Brown. He's like 35 years old and finally getting famous. I mean, look at people like, my God, look at Layback Luke. He started in 1995 when he was 18. He didn't get big until the past 6, 7 years. I mean, it doesn't happen off the blue. I'm technically not even famous. I'm still not even bubbling yet. I'm in the small stages of what a big career could be. And you can't focus on the career first. You have to focus on the music first, and then the career will happen. So that's
a
the
great
biggest. If you focus on the music, you'll get somewhere. If you focus on the business, you won't get anywhere.
That's great. Well, thanks for giving an awesome interview, Greg.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it. It was fun. I love doing interviews. If you haven't noticed.
All right, man. See you later.
Okay, man. Have a good one. Let me know when it goes up.